Mason and I spent the majority of our marriage just pointing fingers at one another. As we neared the end of our days, we gazed into each other's eyes and, using the most cutting words, wished we'd never cross paths again in the next life. Mason couldn't stand how I pinned him down with marriage and kids, snatching away his shot to be a singer in Los Angeles. I couldn't bear how he left me to care for our ailing parents and our two kids while he was out partying. But amidst all that bitterness, we got another shot. We caught each other's eyes in a crowd and, without a second thought, turned and walked away from one another. I hope this time neither of us has any regrets. The day I switched up my college application, my dad walked into my study, gave me a once-over, and nodded with approval. "With your grades, you gotta aim for a top school. Stop wasting time with Mason. What's so great about him?" My mom overheard this from the kitchen, dashed in, and yanked him away, giving him a side eye. I chuckled watching them leave, but then felt a sharp pain in my nose. In my past life, I had dashed out late one night to meet Mason at the train station. My parents, searching for me, were hit by a drunk driver and I never saw them again. I wiped my tears, moved the mouse, and clicked to change my college choice decisively. Last time, Mason, who grew up with me, suddenly decided he wanted to chase his singing dream in Los Angeles. Before that, he always said being with me and going to the same college was his dream. So I shelved my high scores to enroll in a lower-tier college with him. But just 2 days before we were to get our acceptance letters, he opted to follow his dream in LA. His parents, who weren't in good health, showed up at my door at night, begging me to find their son. I went to help, and my worried parents followed, only to perish in that tragic accident. Later, Mason came back and, hearing his folks blame me for my parents' deaths, felt he needed to make it up to me. So we got engaged and planned to marry right after college. But by the second year, I was pregnant and had to drop out. We rushed through the wedding, had a baby, and I spent my days taking care of the family. 2 years zipped by, and just as I was gearing up to return to school, his parents fell sick and came to us for treatment. Mason told me to be cool, saying his folks had worked hard for him, and he needed to support them while juggling the family. For his sake, I kept quiet that his $3,500 monthly job didn't even cover the kids' formula and basic bills. I ended up selling our family home to pay his parents' medical costs and raise our kids. Meanwhile, Mason was blowing his tiny paycheck on partying and his music, claiming he was chasing his dream. The family pressure got too much, and after failing to communicate, we started fighting hardcore. He called me bitter and closed-minded, blaming me for blocking him from becoming a big star in LA. He accused me of using my parents' death to manipulate him into marrying me. I shot back that his dream of being a singer was just a pipe dream. When he brought up my parents, I lost it and lunged at him, but he just shoved me away. After that, Mason stayed out, and his parents blamed me whenever he didn't come home. They forgot how they had begged me to find their son. Living in misery, I took on any odd job to support the family. Yet my kids grew distant, much preferring their absent father. I thought they'd get it someday, but that day never came. Not until they got married and moved out. They couldn't wait to have Mason move in with them, but stayed icy toward me. "Mom, you were too controlling. We don't want more lectures. Dad's dream was crushed because of you. Now that he's older, we're taking him to LA to chase his dream. Grandma and Grandpa were right. You just want everyone to live your way. You're selfish." Their words cut deep. When I got home, I found Mason packing his bags, bragging about finally ditching me. 20 years of hard work for my family, and I ended up being the selfish control freak. Mason, carefree for years, was the beloved, open-minded dad. I pushed him out of frustration. Mason, shocked, grabbed a vase to fight back. "How dare you touch me? I'll kill you!" In the end, our deaths were the result of that final fight. As we both hit the ground, I prayed that in the next life, I wouldn't meet Mason again. When I was reborn, it was the day I chose my college again. Seeing my parents still by my side, I was determined to stay away from anything involving Mason. After our college entrance exams, parties started rolling in, one after another. After a hangout with friends, I saw Mason laughing with some buddies from afar. I heard Mason quit school and is heading to LA to be a singer. Huh? Is that the trend now? If he becomes a star, we should snag some autographs before they blow up in value. Jess, didn't you grow up with Mason? Did you know he's going to LA? My friend nudged me, and my eyes met Mason's as he turned around in the crowd. Just from that glance, I knew Mason had been reborn too. I have no clue. I've got stuff to do. Later, I turned confidently, letting him chase his dreams in LA. What did that have to do with me? As Mason's departure day neared, I told my parents I missed my grandma and wanted to see the new ducklings there. They adored me and didn't hesitate to pack up and take me with them. Just as we were leaving, Mason's mom opened her door and froze, seeing us about to go. Heading out, my dad nodded with a smile. The kid misses grandma, so we're going for a few days. Mason's mom smiled and watched us leave. I acted chill, but inside, I was clenching my fists in anger, trying to keep it hidden. It's funny how, in my past life, I thought Mason's mom genuinely cared for me. But later, I found out her motives were never pure. She had her eyes on my family's house for ages. That's why she pushed so hard for the marriage between me and Mason after my parents passed away. Back then, I was a wreck, crying my eyes out every day. Her sweet and patient nature really comforted me, making me let my guard down completely. Plus, I liked Mason, so it seemed like a natural choice. Little did I know, everything was planned from the start. I took a deep breath, trying to hide my angry trembling, and smiled while chatting with my parents about the new pony at Grandma's house. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw Mason rushing around. Mason probably realized I was reborn too, so he had to speed up his plan to leave home and chase his dreams. We had just arrived at Grandma's and were happily having dinner when Mom got a call from Mason's mom. Mason insists on going to LA to be a singer and doesn't want to study. He's so determined, and we can't convince him otherwise. Can Emma come back to talk to him? After all, the two kids are close, and Mason listens to Emma. The line sounded almost the same as last time. Mom looked at me, unsure. After all, we were in the countryside, and getting back wouldn't be easy. I calmly put down my chopsticks and took the phone from Mom. Auntie, this is Mason's decision, and I can't interfere. Even if I did, he might resent me. I think it's best if you respect his wishes. I hung up decisively and blocked Mason's mom's number right after, leaving even my parents surprised at my swift actions. Grandma was the first to speak up, saying we should mind our own business. What's happening to others doesn't involve us. I couldn't agree more with her. After dinner, I was playing with the fluffy-headed puppy in the yard when my parents came over. Emma, is something bothering you lately? Mom hesitated, sensing something different about me. Dad didn't say anything but looked at me with concern. Their worried looks made my eyes well up. I wiped them quickly, finding actual tears there. Mom, Dad, I need to tell you about a dream I had. I pretended it was just a dream and shared details about my past life. Hearing how I was dragged along by Mason's family after their deaths, Dad's face darkened like coal. They trusted me, especially since I started my story with Mason going to LA and Mason's mom asking me to find him. It all clicked why I suddenly wanted to visit Grandma and why I was dead set against finding Mason. My sweet child, my precious, Mom cried, pulling me into her arms. Even if she thought it was just a dream, her tears fell on my head, and her heart ached for me. Dad, smoking silently, made a decision. If Emma's dreams are mismatched with our families, I've made up my mind. We're moving. We'll get away from them. I hadn't expected such support from Mom and Dad, and I nodded tearfully, feeling so grateful. I hugged Mom tighter, soaking up her warmth. We stayed at Grandma's for 2 weeks, and I got visibly tanned. When we headed back, Grandma packed us a carload of food. Before moving house, we were going to spend some time at the old place. Just as we reached our doorstep, Mason's mom quickly opened her door. Her eyes were red from crying, looking at us with thinly veiled bitterness. "Why didn't you answer my calls?" Mason's mom demanded, her face a little twisted. "Why didn't you come back to help me find Mason?" she suddenly shouted, startling my parents. They hadn't expected such an outburst. I just watched her coldly. Having lived with them for over 20 years in my past life, I knew her knack for acting and twisting truths. My mom, unable to hold back, wanted to say something, but I tugged at her sleeve. "Let's go inside. It's not worth it." Mom, holding me protectively, glared at Mason's mom, but couldn't help saying, "You expect our Emma to manage your son? What does Emma have to do with him? You're barking up the wrong tree." Once inside, Dad quickly contacted friends and set up an afternoon house viewing. If all went well, we might be moving as soon as tomorrow. Mom and I settled on the sofa, and she gently stroked my hair. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. We'll be far away from them soon. I nestled into her embrace, letting out a small, Moving happened faster than I imagined. And before I knew it, my acceptance letter arrived in the mail. This time without Mason or the accident, I happily went to pick it up from school. On my way back, my parents were discussing how much allowance to give me, and we all laughed together, joyful beyond words. Still, sometimes I dream of the past, of surviving on limited savings to support a family, dealing with Mason's parents' complaints, being misunderstood by my own kids, and enduring years of bickering with Mason. Thank goodness I can start fresh now. Soon the new semester began. Standing on campus, my parents smiled, proud of my decision to change majors. In my past life during this time, I had just finished my parents' funeral, lost and going with Mason to that rural college. Whenever someone asked about us, Mason would subconsciously put distance between us, pulling an awkward smile. He'd say we were just classmates, even though we were engaged back then. I shook off those thoughts and walked with my parents to register. A new school and a fresh start. Soon I adapted to this new environment, embracing everything with immense gratitude as my parents left reluctantly. In my previous life, I couldn't continue my studies because I was busy taking care of my kids and family. Now that I finally have the chance to continue, no one is happier than me. During winter break, I returned home with a scholarship and some cash I earned from writing. I bought gifts for my parents, and they were grinning ear to ear, saying I was the most caring daughter. That evening, my parents teamed up to cook a big dinner. At the table, we chatted about recent events until my mom casually mentioned running into Mason's mom a couple of days ago. She said they were trying to sell veggies at the market, and ever since they lost their jobs, they've been barely scraping by on relief funds. I sighed when I heard that Mason had signed with some company in LA, which charges thousands for training every month without covering room and board. It's cool if he succeeds, but if not, I lowered my head to eat, but couldn't help smirking inside. Mason won't make it, and it's not a curse. Mason loves to show off, and he posted about signing with some company on his social media, but he didn't even check the company's name. The company is Long Wave Entertainment, which in my last life went bust as a shady scam. They recruited trainees everywhere, made them pay for classes, then sold them to another dodgy company. Those trainees had it rough, wasting thousands with no stage chances or anything to show for it, only to be sent off to another nightmare. I heard only one out of dozens escaped, and they were from a wealthy family that had to shell out over $1 million to break the contract. Mason didn't know because when it happened, he was too busy enjoying his new college life, joining clubs, and totally forgot about the dream and he once insisted on pursuing over school. The only time Mason ever brought up those dreams again was when we fought, and he blamed me. Mom didn't dwell on it and soon moved on to happier topics, joking with Dad, and I joined in, smiling and listening to their stories. After we moved, I thought I wouldn't run into Mason's family, but the next day, when I passed a store while meeting a friend, Mason's mom caught me. It hadn't been long, but Mason's mom, usually well-kept despite any sickness, looked worn out, with hollow eyes and cracked lips, a clear sign of illness. My friend hadn't arrived yet, and seeing I was alone, Mason's mom looked pleased and went on, mostly complaining about us leaving without a word and how her son couldn't even come home for the holidays due to his training in LA. Oh, Mrs. Mason's mom. I pulled my arm back. Sorry, I've got other things to do. I need to go. My attitude clearly threw her off, but she quickly recovered and blocked my path, her tone a bit accusatory. Emma, why are you getting more and more unreasonable? I didn't even hold it against you for not answering my calls, and you're still being rude. Mason's mom relaxed her shoulders, smoothed her hair, and switched to a sweet-talking tone. Auntie knows you used to really like Mason. Now, even though Mason's in LA, trying to be a big star, it's not impossible for you two to be together. I looked her in the eye and knew she was up to no good. I heard your family moved into a big house. You haven't sold the old one, right? So give Auntie the keys. I can watch over it, do some cleaning. This year, if you don't mind, join us for the holidays. Mason will feel relieved knowing someone's taking care of us. Mason's mom laid it all out, expecting to grab my home's keys, rent out the place, and pocket a tidy sum. Me spending the holiday with them would be both a power move against my parents and a way to have a free caregiver and ATM. How could I not see right through Mason's mom's plan? So I just smiled and agreed easily. All right, Mrs. Mason's mom, you go home and wait. I'll talk with my parents. You and uncle don't need to buy anything, no need to spend the money. I'll bring everything with me when I come. Mason's mom was thrilled, praising me a few times before reluctantly leaving. I dusted off where she had grabbed me, smirked, and left. I had an awesome holiday, but I bet Mason's parents didn't. Of course, I wasn't going to give them the keys or bring any food. During the holidays, it's tough to buy anything, especially veggies and grains, and prices skyrocket. With their son chasing dreams, spending like that was out of the question. I didn't hide the fact that I messed with Mason's parents a bit and told my dad about how Mason's mom tried to trick me into being their housemaid. My dad was just mad I didn't mess with them more. What nonsense, thinking my college daughter should look after them. Dad glared. Don't worry. If they dare cause trouble, I'll handle them. What nonsense, seeing how completely biased my dad was, made me laugh so hard I hiccuped. But what I didn't expect was that before the holiday was over, Mason came back. Not only that, he brought a girl with him. The two of them were cozying up, whispering sweet nothings when we ran into each other in town. When Mason saw me, he instinctively pushed the girl away, and she stumbled, instantly frowning. Mason, what are you doing? You begged me to come back with you, yet you pushed me away. Mason panicked immediately, sweet-talking her, but kept glancing back at me. Maybe it was the habit built over 20-some years of marriage that made him so watchful when sneaking around. Even though we weren't married anymore, he couldn't shake the caution. I gave him a look, and when my eyes fell back on the girl, I realized she seemed familiar. Suddenly, I understood why, in the past life, Mason wanted to go to LA and be a singer out of nowhere. I understood why Mason never spoke of our past after we made vows to each other. I also understood why Mason later resented me so much. I couldn't hold it in and burst out laughing. Meeting Mason's gaze filled with sarcasm, I silently cursed and walked away. That girl was named Jessica. She spent a short time in our class as a guest student during our senior year. She was young, beautiful, lively, and different from us girls who only focused on academics. Jessica was the crush of all the boys in that short span. I just never thought Mason was one of them. During a power outage in class, Mason sang a song by candlelight. Jessica, full of praise, said he was so good that he could be a big star in LA. Jessica was a girl from LA, and to folks in our small town, the idea of LA was like a dream. Thinking back, it all makes sense now. After Jessica left, Mason's attitude toward me changed. He started criticizing me for not eating like a lady, like Jessica did. He said I only cared about studying and had no desire to see the world. He remarked I didn't bother to look nice and missed the prime years of my youth. I laughed off his comments back then, thinking he was trying to help me improve myself. Looking back now, it was clear he couldn't find any part of me that resembled Jessica, so he lashed out at me. Even when we got married, he looked cold, and after getting our marriage certificate, he just said, "Are you happy now?" Like he was forced into being with me. His uncontrolled desires caused problems that he expected me to fix. That's how Mason handled things. I'm not sure how Mason reconnected with Jessica in LA, but I heard it got lively at Mason's place. Jessica stormed out after only half an hour. She argued with Mason's mom, who tried to impose rules on her. But Jessica wouldn't take it and knocked over their greasy dining table before leaving. My parents, amused by the drama, happily sent me back to college, telling me to focus on my studies. I started writing in my spare time and secretly completed 3 novels, each over 1,000,000 words. The royalties were worth it. Suddenly, Mason reached out on social media. After a few rejections, he kept using new numbers to get in touch, and I finally gave in. Once we were connected again, he just complained about how tough life was in LA. Chasing dreams is hard with so many competitors. I'm not really exceptional, just someone with charm and good looks, which helped me win over Jessica. But after the initial excitement, I wanted Jessica to take care of me. That's where it went wrong. Unlike me, Jessica wouldn't do it. I got dumped, and my agency had big issues too. I'm so unlucky, he grumbled. This singing agency is rough 14-hour vocal practice sessions daily. I'd have been better off sticking with my studies. LA people are too snobby. I'm not famous yet, but I will be. They won't even share a drink with me. I ignored Mason's messages mostly, but when I peeked and saw one like that, I chuckled. Sure, folks from small towns are genuine. That's why Mason's family thought they could boss me around like a maid. I was the real fool. Mason would always regret his choices because he never put in the effort or was willing to change. He blamed others when things went wrong and thought an alternate path would have been better. People fantasize about what could have been, and Mason, especially so. Selfish, cowardly, evasive. That's Mason. Realizing this, I blocked him and changed my contacts and accounts. But I didn't expect Mason to track me down after I cut him off. In my sophomore year, I used my earnings from my writing to start a small media company. I signed a few up-and-coming social media influencers and planned their strategies. Their accounts grew, bringing in ad revenue. I juggled my studies, work, and brought my parents to live with me, even bought them a house. My parents were thrilled, boasting about my success and constantly looking for new influencers to sign. After an exam one day, rushing to a meeting, someone grabbed me tightly. Honey, I finally found you. That familiar voice startled me until I realized it was Mason, wearing a worn-out leather jacket with patched-up makeup and yellow teeth. He reeked of perfume, trying to hug me as I dodged. I know you too have been reborn, he said, spouting nonsense. Mason's mom had tipped him off about my media company, leading him to my influencers. Realizing I'd become a wealthy businesswoman, Mason thought I was his meal ticket, figuring reconnecting with me was the real deal, more than chasing dreams in LA. Mason blocked my way, pretending to be sincere. Wife, even though we got another shot at life, we can still start fresh, don't you remember? We have 2 adorable kids. In our past life, we were so happy together as a family of 6. I watched Mason put on his act and couldn't help but roll my eyes. Mason, get a grip. Did you forget why we got this chance to start over? His face looked kinda off, and his eyes started darting around. I'm not looking to repeat the past mess we went through. I'm just glad I finally got away from you this time. I let out a sigh, unable to hide my disgust. You always blamed me for ruining your dreams and using marriage to tie you down. You'd lash out and even dared to blame everything on me in front of the kids. Mason, I have to ask, now that I'm out of your way, where's your dream of being a singer? All those big dream days, being famous overnight? Why haven't you moved your mom, who you treat like royalty, to LA yet? Oh, right, I almost forgot. I shook my head at Mason. This time around, your mom's still sick and earning money to support your dreams. I heard you even sold your house just to buy an electric guitar. Do you even know how to use it? Mason's expression soured, and with a sudden fierce look, he grabbed me. Who do you think you are? No matter how much you act like it, you're still just the washed-up wife who raised my kids for over 20 years. You think being reborn lets you run away? His eyes flashed maliciously, and he let out a cold laugh. Now that you've gotten a bit of a name for yourself, what if I tell everyone where your birthmarks are and how responsive you are? I doubt your company would like that. Go ahead, say whatever you want. I snapped back and yanked my arm free, my gaze now filled with pure disdain. You'd really use vilifying women to get what you want out of being reborn, huh? Can't you do something respectable for once? I called over the security by the entrance, told them Mason wasn't a student at our school, and hid behind them. As Mason said, after spending so much time together, we know exactly what to say or do to strike a nerve. While the security held Mason, I seized the chance to leave and caught a cab out of this mess. Back at the company, the first thing I did was call in a budding content creator, and we spent the afternoon talking in my office. A short video series popped up online and went viral. It was about a young girl, on her neighbor auntie's request, going out late at night to the train station to find her sweetheart. But when her parents, worried about her, rushed out to find her, they got into a car accident. The seemingly kind neighbor then took advantage of the situation, driving away the girl's other relatives and convincing her to marry her son. It turned out she was scheming to take over the girl's family property. I turned Mason's and my story into a short series. At that point, the concept was still fresh, and with the mix of fiction and reality, it quickly got a lot of attention online. That guy is the worst. His wife works so hard and he just dreams about being a singer. Singers don't get there by just talking about it. He's been given another chance and he still just tries to cling to others? How shameless can you be? If I had a son like that, I'd strangle him. And his parents, they're the worst, no wonder they're dead. It blew up online with people raging. The small-time creator shooting it all went viral overnight, getting 1 million followers. I jumped in with a bunch of ad deals for her, and she made a killing. Of course, Mason wouldn't let me get away with it that easy. He started spreading nasty rumors about me online and made our past relationship sound scandalous. Some gullible jerks bought into it and started trash-talking me online. I fought back, sending out lawsuit notices left and right. Obviously, having two different timelines is a crazy concept, and nobody actually believed it. Mason soon got caught. His rumors went viral over 3,000 times, some with help from paid fake accounts. He basically dug his own grave. Mason's parents were in a panic, trying to contact my family, but it was useless. During this time, Mason's LA company also sued him. He violated company policies, left without permission, and engaged in numerous activities outside the company's consent. Even I was surprised when I heard. It seemed like Mason hadn't become a big shot yet, but he sure picked up all the bad habits of one. Mason tried to reach out to me, hoping I'd get him a good lawyer out of our past relationship, promising he'd repay me after he got out. Repay me? More like revenge. I had him thrown out and replied with one word: dream on. I might not haunt him for past life grievances, but I won't forget them either. I intend to watch as Mason's life spirals down the drain and his so-called excellent parents run around in circles for him as they age. It's only fair. I put on my sunglasses and headed to work. The right life, the right path. My life will only shine bright and brilliant. Asterisk, asterisk, epilogue. Asterisk, asterisk. When Mason got caught, he was baffled. Standing before the police charges, he instinctively wanted to argue back but didn't know what to say. In the end, he just gritted his teeth and stressed that he and Emma were husband and wife. Yes, they were married. In their past life, Mason's mom said it as well. They were husband and wife. But even in ancient times, the husband was always the sky, and Emma, a nobody, was lucky Mason even took her in. Truthfully, Mason had thought Emma was pretty nice before, sweet and obedient, always blushing when he spoke to her. But then came Jessica, and everything changed. A bold, fiery rose that stoked all of Mason's teenage fervor. Compared to that, Emma was too bland. After they got married, Mason's high school buddies mentioned that once Jessica moved back to LA, she went to college, started dating a popular singer, and even crashed some servers when they went public. Hearing stuff like that drove Mason nuts with jealousy. If I'd fought for my dreams back then, would I be the one with Jessica now? Because of all this, he started resenting Emma for stopping him back then. He even thought if she hadn't stopped him, her parents wouldn't have died, and he wouldn't have been forced to get engaged to her. So all of this was Emma's fault. If it wasn't for getting engaged and married to her, maybe I could have chased my dreams. For over 20 years, Mason intentionally made her life difficult. Every time Emma got angrier, he felt happy inside, thinking it was her karma. He even told their 2 kids that Emma was just a mean mom with a bad temper, unlike him who had a good one. Kids are impressionable, so after hearing it for a few years, they believed him and started siding with him against Emma. But Mason didn't expect a chance to be reborn, and he definitely didn't expect life after that to be so different from what he imagined. He got tired. He even began to miss the time Emma took care of him in the past life. Just in time, he heard she had come into some money. Perfect! If we got back together now, I wouldn't have to live a hard life like before. Maybe with Emma's money, I could finally make a name for myself. But those dreams shattered when the police caught him. He was even more shocked when his company in LA got involved too. Upon realizing the massive compensation he owed and that he would go to jail, Mason freaked out. Something's wrong. My life wasn't supposed to be like this. Can I get another do-over? As Mason had his colored hair shaved off, he stared blankly at the mirror and finally closed his eyes, leaving a single tear. He regretted it. So, could I start over just one more time? One more